You are now watching Zaclasage, the best place to learn about competitive Pokemon TCG. Let's get it! Yo, what's poppin' peeps? Welcome back to the channel, Zaclasage here. Today we're going to be going over the top 11 through 20 decks in the Brilliant Stars format. Now in our top 10 decks that we have every single Monday at 12 p.m. noon Eastern, we saw that Arceus V-Star decks and Mew VMAX decks were absolutely dominating everywhere. Is that going to be the case for these decks? Well, we're going to find out in this video below. In the pinned comment below, we're going to have access to all the decks lists. You can copy and paste them right into PTCGO, PTCG Live, and there's going to be reference videos for most of them. If there's not, they're certainly going to be on their way, or at least attempted to be on their way, on this channel. If you haven't already, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. We just passed 10k subs. Let's get to 11k. Come on, I know we can do it. And let me know in the comments below what you think the top 11 through 20 decks are going to be. Take a wild guess. I'm sure you'll probably get it right. And it does help out the YouTube algorithm. I guess where we're going to be starting off is going to be what is going to be our 20th place deck, the deck that's just entering into these top decks. Let's see exactly what's going on. Let's jump into number 20. Breathing hot fire all the way at number 20 and dropping from 13th last week is Charizard VSTAR with some kind of toolbox Pokemon. Not entirely sure what the name of this deck, but let's just go with Charizard VSTAR toolbox. Magma Basin really is the core of this deck, where you're going to be accelerating energies from your discard pile, similar like Houndoom Single Strike, where you're adding damage counters, but it's going to be working for fire type Pokemon. Charizard VSTAR is one of those cards that I would say is semi-viable. It's not bad, but you gain strength from the Magma Basin, having access to single prize card attackers, and various 2 prize card attackers. And I mean, Charizard V-Star does have quite a few powerful attacks. Is this deck good? I mean, I think it's one of those cases where it's going to be underplayed, and it's probably and it's good. I don't know how good. My gut feeling is that Entei or other just decks might be better. And they just necessarily haven't seen play yet, and not too many people have experimented with our fire type archetypes in this format yet. So I'm going to generally say that fire is probably better than people give it credit for right now. I don't think it's necessarily great, but we might have a fire deck that shoots up to the top 10. This deck seems unfairly placed at number 20, and it's probably just due to lack of play. So by all means, give it a try. This looks like a solid base list. I really like fire type decks, so maybe that's just my personal bias. If you are trying to pick up any of these cards online, you could go to ptcgostore.com, plug in code ZELASAGE5 to save 5% on your order. You can use those codes to crack those packs open on PTCG Live, or trade for cards on PTCGO. Also, if you're trying to pick up some of the cards in real life, you can go to atlascollectibles.com, plug in code ZELASAGE8 to save 8% on your order of Pokemon TCG products. Both of those links are going to be in the description. Check that out. Also tied at number 20, Intrepid Sword, and all the way down from number 10. I think that Sword is stuck in the zone right now. Got Zacian V with Zamazenta V. Now, this is the Josh Sutherland special, but it seems like Josh has actually switched to different decks. At the Late Night Series number 30, Josh played Jolteon VMAX of all decks. And that's something that we may or may not see on this list. Let me know in the comments below if you think we're going to see it. But going into it, Zacian V is about using Intrepid Sword, ripping some energies onto it, and then attacking with Brave Blade. You have options to go Oranguru with Rotom Phone, and just stack metal energies on top of your deck, or put metal saucers and important things back. And Zamazenta V is a good wall. This deck kind of lost a lot in this format, or at least in my opinion it lost a lot, because it no longer has access to just VMAX Pokemon. V-Star Pokemon exist, they're here, they're chilling. Arceus V-Star does go through Dauntless shields. Zacian V might just be outclassed by other stronger 2 prize card attackers like Arceus V-Star. So overall, I think this deck is going down. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw this one exit out of the top 20 entirely, just due to lack of play. It is relatively easy to play, really easy to set up, but it just doesn't seem effective in this format. If anyone in the comments wants to let me know if you think Zacian V is good or not anymore, I'd love to hear your kind of take on it, because right now I just don't see this holding up to a lot of other decks. Unless, of course, we had 2 Ice Rider decks in our top 10. It might just be the case where this deck is a Ice Rider counter. But I think the new Zamazenta V from Brilliant Stars is being used in a lot of toolbox-style decks to take care of that. So that just might be a better case. We'll have to see how it goes. But right now, this deck just doesn't seem appropriately placed in the metagame at all. Combo breaking it out of that number 20 tie and galloping all the way to number 18 is Shadow Rider Calyrex VMAX with Arceus V-Star. It's nice to see Charizard Calyrex VMAX come back into the game, and here's one of those Arceus decks, and I think a lot of decks are going to be Arceus decks. That's my gut feeling. Decks are going to be playing Arceus. They seem really cool. It allows you to use Starbirth, search your deck for things, accelerate energies. It's obviously a great card and can make a lot of rogue-ish or underplayed concepts really good. This easily could have been a Scorch VMAX deck. This easily could have been another Charizard V-Star deck. This could have been a lot of things. Right now we're just trying to be using Underworld Door, accelerating extra energies, and hitting hard with Max Geist. Arceus V-Star fits in great here, so you could accelerate more energies, and of course, you could use Starbirth to search out missing pieces, what you're looking for. I think this deck's cool. It just kind of folds to Dark-type decks, as far as I'm concerned. That's really where the case of a lot of decks that are just Psychic-type are. They often get compared to Mew, which is a fair comparison. Most of them are weak to Dark, and if they're not weak to Dark, they're probably an irrelevant card. I haven't really met too many Psychic-type Pokemon or seen too many Psychic-type Pokemon that aren't weak to Dark that are viable enough for this format. Regardless, this deck just doesn't necessarily seem like it keeps up to Mew, but if you are looking for something pretty cool, it is really cool. I also like that you have Astral Barrage against single prize card decks, which can be incredibly relevant against decks such as Durant and relevant against things like Malamar and just kind of single prize card decks in general. If you're looking for a way to play Shadow Rider, this list looks like a lot of fun. Give it a try, and if you're trying to up your game, consider getting some coaching from me at metafy.gg/@ZachLesage. You can also use Zach Lesage top 7 to save $7 on your next order of coaching. So it would be really cool. That link is going to be in the description. Rapid striking it all the way to number 17 and not making the top 20 list last week is Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX with Galarian Moltres V. Now, when I saw this variant, I was surprised to see it on the list still. A lot of people seem to like this deck. You got Galarian Moltres V, so you can accelerate energies with its ability, and you have a strong Dark-type attacker against decks like Mew, and we even just saw Shadow Rider Calyrex VMAX. Totally a legit opportunity to beat that deck. With decks like Gengar VMAX, Eternatus VMAX, and Arceus V-Star all being weak to fighting, Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX seems like it has an opportunity to shine again. Now, is this the best way to be playing the deck, or any kind of dark fighting deck? I'm honestly not sure. This deck half functions like Rapid Strike Urshifu with all the quick shooting, plus Pissimian, plus telescopic sight things. You can accelerate energies with the Moltres, move them around with Energy Switch, or I guess there's not even Energy Switch in this deck anymore. So you're not really doing that. You're just using the Galarian Moltres as a side attacker. Reasonably, I'm like, I know that this is my list and I'm looking at it. This is just a deck that I'm like not a fan of. If you're a fan of this deck, that's really cool. I think I'd much rather be playing like a single strike deck, or maybe playing like a Gengar with Stonjourner deck, or maybe just playing a Galarian Moltres, Galarian Zapdos deck with Arceus V-Star. To me, this deck kind of lost its appeal, and it's much better to be kind of like playing these concise attackers instead of having this like whole like underlying strategy, but mainly you're just trying to play it like a counterbox deck. That's my thoughts on it. I'm not a huge fan of this deck, but if you are, I think it's an alright deck. Like, I think if you enjoy playing this deck, that's super cool. It's not my type of deck, and I try to hype this deck up and be positive whenever possible. Some decks I really just don't like, and I feel like I'm unfairly punishing this one, or fairly punishing it. I'm not sure. I think this deck's probably just going to get wiped off the top 20 because it just doesn't really fit in with the rest of the metagame. Although some kind of Rapid Strike deck should be in the lower half of the top 20 or somewhere in the top 20. Maybe even the top 10 because Manaphy's not really seeing that much success. So Rapid Strike probably seems good. I don't think this is the best form of it. We'll have to see how it goes as the season continues. Slipping into number 17 and not making the list last week is Sylveon VMAX with Arceus V-Star. Kind of take on the Arceus V-Star toolbox. Got a lot of inspiration from On Guard. Check out to them. Check out their content on Twitch. For this list, they played it at a late night series. Did pretty well. And I think this is an alright take on the list. Like, I like that all the different types are really cool nowadays. I just, like, my thought process on Sylveon VMAX is that you're going to be using its second attack, and now that you have double turbo energy, you could have some more wiggle room. Like, it's better to be playing double turbo energy than playing rapid strike energy, because now you could play with other Pokemon like Arceus V-Star, and that seems really cool. And the minus 20 damage probably doesn't hurt, because you're not going to be really getting an OHKO anyways with your attack. So you're trying to build up all these different Pokemon in play. You also get the benefit of being different types of Pokemon. My thought process is just like, which Pokemon are weak to Psychic that we're actually trying to counter that makes Sylveon VMAX worthwhile to play in a counter deck? And that's really where I come from. I just don't necessarily know where that number is, what's going on there. Like, Arceus VSTAR can accelerate energies, I totally get that. Galarian Moltres is cool, Yveltal is cool, but to me this just seems like an Arceus VSTAR toolbox deck adding in Sylveon VMAX and somehow making it worse in the process, because we have Counterbox in the top 5 decks for, like, overall. There's probably a reason why this one's at number 17. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that, like, this deck isn't different enough to be its own deck or that Sylveon's bad or anything. I just don't think it's well positioned because there's not enough decks that are weak to Psychic. So in the form of a Counterbox deck, I'd say no to this one, and I think it's going to eventually slip out of the top 20 decks. That's my thought process, or it's going to move into some kind of Counterbox deck, and most of this deck is already a top 5 deck. There's no doubt in my mind that a deck like this can see success. I just, my biggest thought is Sylveon worthwhile in the end? Is it pulling its own weight in a competitive sense? We'll have to find out. Quick shooting all the way to number 15 and not making the list previously is Arceus VSTAR with Inteleon. Now, this is a deck that's kind of caught a lot of people off guard, and I think this is one of those cases where it's a new entry, so it's very exciting. Anything that was not available on the list last week either dips in and out, but we're so new to the format that this build seems almost refreshing in a lot of ways. Now, I'm not sure if this intentionally is going to be the best list. There's a couple changes that I've already thought of after looking at the late night number 30 results. Literally, the late night number 30 is ongoing right now. This deck hit 10-0 during Swiss, and there's quite a few other members, predominantly from the Shuffle Squad, or just like that testing group of Gabe Smart, Vaughn O'Brien, Logan McKay, that have all seen success with this deck. Handful of others as well. Arceus VSTAR is accelerating energies to other Arceus VSTARs. You're then using Drizziles to have a just kind of decent bit of attackers or different options, and then you have access to Dunsparce to get around things like Zapdos. This deck, you could go Charon's Care, and I mean, maybe Charon's Care and Palpad, you might want to play a little bit more, just so you have ways to kind of loop your Arceus VSTAR around. To me, this seems like a really cool build. Just path to the peak your opponent, Starbirth, attack, 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 attack. So it's really one of those things where your Pokemon aren't worth a lot of prize cards, but you're also not giving up a lot of, like, you're just doing chip damage, so it seems to have really good ways to kind of, like, beat up matchups. To me, this deck seems like it's going to shoot up into the top 10. I'm probably not doing a great job explaining it, but I will be filming a video on this deck very, 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 very soon, because I think it's the real deal, and probably a very solid play if you are playing in Brisbane Regionals, or playing in any kind of upcoming events. I think this one's awesome. I'm excited for it. Also being tied at number 15 is Jolteon VMAX. Jolteon VMAX was the number 2 deck in our Fusion Strike format for the whole thing, saw a lot of success in the Evolving Skies metagame, but it kind of took a bit of a steep dive. Like, this deck went from number 2 all the way to number 15. That's a tough call, and a lot of people are probably wondering, where's our Jolteon VMAX deck at? Here it is. And I mean, it's doing okay. The whole goal is maxed under Rumble, hit the bench with either Zigzagoon damage or quick shooting, so you can do 100 and 100. Now, the deck basically gained Ultra Ball, which is okay, gives you more outs to get out things like Jolteon on the first turn. That's about it. Nothing really new from the set. Now, the only thing that's really changed is a lot of decks are playing Zapdos V to counter Arceus VSTAR, so as we see new Pokemon that are weak to fighting, of course we're going to catch some, of that when we're playing a deck like Jolteon. It's weak to fighting. There's other matchups here, like Mew kind of gained a lot of strength in this format. It already had a favorable matchup against Jolteon. It's even better now. Of course, it's going to have a thing. Jolteon's just in that case where it's like, it's not bad. Manaphy came out. Players are worried about it. People probably aren't playing it as much. It's not as well positioned, but it's okay. I think this deck could be like a lower top 10 once people start discovering how the metagame grows, or we kind of stabilize into the meta. But right now, it's just a deck that I wouldn't necessarily recommend, but I can't necessarily not recommend, if you know what I'm saying. It's okay, there's nothing really wrong with it. It's just there's better positioned decks in the formats. Chilling at number 13, arguably the strongest single prize card deck that we have that's a traditional single prize card deck, Malamar with Rapid Strike Tentacles. Now, you're trying to toss a bunch of Rapid Strike cards from your hand into your deck, and this deck does gain quite a bit in this format. We have the new Call for Family Minccino, which allows you to just call for family. Something that's really important, something that other Mincinos didn't have, so there's some nice synergy considering the deck already played Cinccino. You also gained access to Cynthia's Ambition to draw more cards. Very similar to Bruno, when one of your Pokemon's knocked out, you get the benefit of drawing more cards or seeing more cards in your deck. Difference is, Bruno's Shuffle draw 7, Cynthia's Ambition is draw up until 8 if something was knocked out. This gives you like kind of new heights to reach for when it comes for this deck, and I mean, it's good. There's nothing wrong with it. I actually took out the Manaphy out of this deck because there's just not enough Jolteon and Rapid Strike Urshifu seeing play. So this might be the time to just run free with Malamar because the format can handle it. The things that I'm cautious about with this deck is that it's like a little inconsistent. Let's be real. Decks like this, sometimes you can just start with the wrong piece. You have 3 stage 1 lines, whatever. It can certainly happen. And that's cool. That's totally cool. Other ways, it's just one of those things where Malamar also takes a lot of time to play because you're single prize cards, you're shuffling all those cards back into your deck, especially in an in real life setting, so I can't just necessarily give this one my stamp of approval automatically. I think it's an incredibly powerful deck, and if you like playing decks like this, it's certainly effective. But it might not be the deck for everyone, so keep that in mind as you're kind of discovering decks for your upcoming events. Spreading Flames at number 12 and having a steep drop all the way from number 3 to number 12. That's a big drop, is Victini VMAX. Now, I do want to say that was taken from our weekend rankings that we do on the Shuffle Squad channel. If you haven't got a chance to check them out, by all means, check them out. Victini VMAX saw some success at the Late Night Series number 29, getting a top 8 in the event with Avra and Villarreal. Now, that's cool, absolutely awesome. I really like how this list looks. It then saw like a second place finish at an event, and there was very few events to really look at. So that's why the drop is so steep. I think this is the type of deck where it's just like, similar to Charizard, fire decks completely underrated, completely undertested. Players just seem to be testing everything else under the sun except fire. If I had more time to play in events, I'd be playing Magma Basin decks all day long to see if there's one that's actually really good. And this deck might be really good. It's very vicious. You could be getting knockouts turn 1, and this deck has the ability to keep up with Mew. You can just go attack with Entei. Maybe Entei, Catcher, Magma Base, and Escape Rope is better. I'm not sure. So I think this falls very similar into Charizard VSTAR, where you're just trying to Magma Base into certain attackers, attacks with Max Victory, attack with Burning Rondo, attack with Inferno Wings, whatever works best. The deck's cool. It's pretty basic to play, but it's one of those things where I'm just not sure how well positioned this deck is compared to the rest of the metagame, but fire decks overall are probably underrated. I'd say, if anything, this deck might just go down a little bit more. Victini decks largely have not been one of the more popular decks, and they've only been popular as the 4/4 Victini line by Lee Bui. Single striking it all the way to number 11, and the first one that did not make the top 10. This deck got snubbed out by 10 CP to Durant. And that's the difference of just like maybe a win at a 4 to 8 player tournament, or maybe like a top 16 at an event that has about 100 players in it. Like, it's incredibly close to see how these decks perform. Now, Single Strike Roar is the core of this deck, using Houndoom to accelerate energies to your various type attackers. You're part Dark type, part Fighting type. Choose the attacker that's going to work well in the matchup. You have Umbreon V that can gust up anything. And Single Strike Urshifu VMAX is incredibly effective against decks such as Duraludon VMAX because you go through anything with Gmax one blow. With Lumineon V, this deck does gain some new tricks, such as searching out a Gloria, grabbing out some Houndours. I think that could be pretty cool. You also have access to Piers, and you can search your deck out one of your energies, and a Pokemon that could be a Gust effect. You also have access to Ultra Ball now, so the deck should be a little bit more consistent. And I added a double Turbo Energy to give yourself some retreatable options, and you could maybe attack with your Umbreon V or Umbreon VMAX, or even Single Strike Urshifu VMAX's first attack a little bit quicker. I think these tricks add enough to Single Strike where it should probably be in the top 10. At least I'm looking at the top 10 and it looks like it should be in the top 10. I can see Durant falling down a little bit and Single Strike moving up a little bit. This deck's just not as successful as Gengar, and that's really where we're at. So with one Single Strike deck already being within the top 5-6 decks, I think that this deck is appropriately placed at that 10-11 spot. We'll have to see if Single Strike's able to take it more in the going further, but right now I just don't think it's well positioned in the metagame, or at least isn't as well positioned as it was in the Evolving Skies metagame. And there we have it. We got Single Strike coming at our top deck in this one, coming at 11th place in the metagame. barely not making that top 10 decks, but it might be able to shoot up in our Brilliant Stars metagame. And you gotta love how these new character rare arts look. It's one of those things where this trainer subset Gallery looks amazing for the Houndoom, looks amazing for the single strike Urshifus and Umbreons. This deck definitely got a boost, especially when it comes to arts. Now, we're going to see exactly how our metagame takes us. A lot of things are going to be changing in this metagame really quick. There's quite a few decks that I think are going to be shooting up. And I mean, honestly, out of this list, to me, it seems like that Arceus VSTAR Inteleon deck might be able to break into the top 10 hugely. It seems like it's been completely underrated, dismissed, and it's probably going to see a lot more success going forward. What do you think is going to happen in our Brilliant Stars metagame? Let me know in the comments below. Love to hear back from you. If you haven't already, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, hit that like button, and let me know in the comments what type of content you're going to be looking for. If you're trying to pick up any of the cards for these decks, go to ptcgostore.com, plug in code ZLassage5 to save 5% on codes. You can also go to atlascollectibles.com, plug in code ZLassage8 to save 8% off your physical TCG Pokemon products. You can also hit me up at metafy.gg/@ZachLassage. You can use code ZachLassage top7 to save $7 on your first coaching session. I hope all those things help you out on your Pokemon journey, and I look forward to a great week of content. I'll catch up with all y'all later. Peace out and have a great one. I truly appreciate you taking the time out of your day to watch this video. It means the world to me. And my goal with this channel is to spread my love of the game and knowledge with our entire Pokemon TCG community. If you haven't already, help signal boost this video to other Pokemon TCG fans by liking it, sharing it with your friends, and subscribing to the channel. Hopefully we reach our goals really soon. Check out this recommended video, and have yourself a great day. Thanks.